Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, I am your instructor Dr. Abdul Wahab with lecture number 5 of Calculus MTH 250. Let's have a look at the previous lecture's summary. In the last lecture, we discussed about logarithmic functions as the inverses of exponential functions. Then we moved on to inverse trigonometric functions, where we studied their properties, and we have seen that the inverse trigonometric functions were not one-to-one, and so the inverse was not possible. In order to make the trigonometric functions as inversible functions, we restricted their domains to principal regions, and with this we could have made them one-to-one and onto functions, and so we defined their inverses over the restricted domains. Then we talked about limit concept, and I introduced you what we mean by a limit, or the approaching value of some x equal to some point a. We also talked about one-sided limits and their relationships with two-sided limits. Then we have seen some examples where the limit does not exist. Then we defined the vertical asymptotes as the equations of the lines to the function, where the function has right and left hand limits as plus and minus infinity. Then we moved on to laws of limit, where we studied some working rules to find limits of polynomials, rational functions, and addition, subtraction, and division of some functions. We studied that in order to find the limit of rational functions, the denominator must not approach to 0 as x approach to the point of limit. Here is today's lecture. Today we are going to study some working rules for calculating limits at finite points. Then I will let you introduce about the limit as at infinity. As our independent variable goes to infinity, what would be the results? Then I will also talk about horizontal asymptotes, and we will study some criterion to find horizontal asymptotes. We will see some examples as well. Then I will introduce you with laws of limit at infinity, and we will talk about the limits for logarithmic functions and exponential functions. Finally, we will talk about the formal definition of limits and the uniqueness of a limit. Let's begin today's lecture. We start with some working rules to calculate the limits at finite points. The important formula that we need to use often in limits is a plus b multiplied with a minus b is equal to a square minus b square. Where do we use this formula? We use this formula to rationalize the functions involving roots or square roots or nth roots, or we use this formula to factorize the fractions where we are getting undetermined form of 0 over 0, infinity over infinity, 0 times infinity, or infinity times infinity, while we substitute the value of x at the limiting point. For example, consider the limit of function x square minus 1 over x minus 1 at point x is equal to 1. Now as x approaches to 1, we can see that if we substitute the value of x is equal to 1 in the numerator, it gives us answer 0, and when we substitute the value of x in the denominator, it gives us 0 as well. So we are getting an undetermined form which is 0 over 0 by substituting the value of x equals 1. So in order to rectify this, we use the above said formula a minus b times a plus b is equal to a square minus b square. So we factorize the numerator x square minus 1 as x minus 1 times x plus 1, and now we have a common factor x minus 1 in the numerator and in the denominator as well. So we can cancel out x minus 1 from numerator and from denominator as we are applying the limits x approaching to 1. We have discussed in first lecture that x is approaching to 1 and it is not exactly 1. So the factor x minus 1 is not exactly 0. It is approximately going to 0, but it is not 0. So we can divide with x minus 1 in the numerator and in the denominator. As a result, we get x minus 1 times x plus 1 divided by x minus 1 equals x plus 1. Now when we apply the limit x approaches to 1, we are getting x plus 1 equals 2 when x approaches to 1. Now remark that it is the same function which was giving us the undetermined form, and the power of the formula a plus b into a minus b is equal to a square minus b square has given us a determined answer, and that is 2. Now in some practical problems we get the expressions involving square roots or cube roots or nth roots. So how to solve these limits? Again, this formula rescues us, and if a square root appears in the expression, then we just multiply and divide by the conjugate of the square root expression. For example, if we want to calculate the limit x approaches to infinity of square root x plus 1 minus square root x minus 2, we can see that this function involves two square roots. We just change the sign between both parts of this function, that is, we take square root x plus 1 plus square root x minus 2 and we call it the conjugate of this function square root x plus 1 minus square root x minus 2. We multiply and divide with the conjugate of the function, that is, we take square root x plus 1 minus square root x plus 2 times square root x plus 1 plus square root x minus 2 divided by square root x plus 1 plus square root x minus 2. You can see in the denominator we are having the conjugate which we multiply with. So the formula a plus b times a minus b is equal to a square minus b square gives us the square of square root of x plus 1 minus square of square root of x plus 2, which gives us in the numerator x plus 1 minus x minus 2. In the denominator we are having the conjugate function square root x plus 1 plus square root x minus 2. On simplification we get 3 over square root x plus 1 plus square root x minus 2. Now we can see that when we substitute x approaches to infinity in this expression, we get 0. Now we move on to the next example, which is to calculate limit x approaches to 2 x square minus 3x plus 2 divided by x minus 2. We rewrite x square minus 3x plus 2 as its factor x minus 1 times x minus 2, and in the denominator we are having x minus 2. Remark that x is approaching to 2 and x is not equal to 2, so x minus 2 is not equal to 0. So we can divide with x minus 2. Dividing numerator and denominator with x minus 2, we get x minus 1 times x minus 2 divided by x minus 2 is equal to x minus 1. Therefore, limit x approaches to 2, x square minus 3x plus 2 divided by x minus 2 gives us limit x approaches to 2, x minus 1, and on substituting x is equal to 2 in the expression, as we are applying the limit on a polynomial, and the limit of a polynomial is just equal to the value of the polynomial at the limiting point. So we substitute x is equal to 2 in x minus 1, which gives us answer limit x approaches to 2, x square minus 3x plus 2 divided by x minus 2 equals 1. Now we move on to the next example, where we have to calculate the limit as x approaches to 0 of 2x whole divided by square root 2x square plus x plus 1 minus square root x square minus 3x plus 1. So how to solve it? Can you guess? Yes, of course, we have to rationalize this expression, because in the denominator we are having square roots, and when we directly substitute x is equal to 0 in the expression, we get 0 over 0, which is an undetermined form. So we have to rationalize before we could apply the limit x approaches to 0. We rewrite 2x over square root 2x square plus x plus 1 minus square root x square minus 3x plus 1 as 2x times the conjugate square root 2x square plus x plus 1 plus square root x square minus 3x plus 1 whole divided by square root 2x plus whole divided by square root 2x square plus x plus 1 minus square root x square minus 3x plus 1 times square root 2x square plus x plus 1 plus square root x square minus 3x plus 1. In the numerator, we cannot simplify further, but in the denominator, our magical formula a plus b times a minus b is equal to a square minus b square helps us, and we get 2x square root 2x square plus x plus 1 plus square root x square minus 3x plus 1 whole divided by square root of 2x square plus x plus 1 minus square root of x square minus 3x plus 1. On applying the square on the square root, we get 2x square plus x plus 1 minus x square minus 3x plus 1 in the denominator, and on simplification this provides us the expression 2x square root 2x square plus x plus 1 plus square root x square minus 3x plus 1 whole divided by x square plus 4x. Next, as we can see that x is a factor of the numerator as well as the denominator, and x is approaching to 0 but is not equal to 0, so we can divide with x in the denominator and in the numerator. By doing so, we get 2 times square root 2x square plus x plus 1 plus square root x square minus 3x plus 1 divided by x plus 4. Now remark that when we substitute x is equal to 0 in place of limit inside the function, we get 2 times 1 plus 1 divided by 0 plus 4, which is a well-determined form, and now we have removed the undetermined form by rationalizing our function. So when we apply limit, we get 2 times 2 divided by 0 plus 4, which gives us answer 1. So the limit x approaches to 0 of 2x divided by square root 2x square plus x plus 1 minus square root x square minus 3x plus 1 equals 1. Let's see another example. In this example, we need to calculate only the right hand limit of e raised to the power 10x when x approaches to pi by 2 from the right side. Remark that for x between pi by 2 and pi, tan of x is negative, and therefore limit x approaches to pi by 2 from positive side, tan of x is equal to minus pi, minus infinity. Now substituting this value in the expression of e raised to the power 10x, we can see that as limit x approaches to pi by 2 from positive side, e raised to the power 10x becomes 0. Up till now, we have calculated the limits of the functions at a finite point x is equal to a. What happens when we need to calculate the limit of a function as x approaches to infinity? What is the definition? We say that if the values of f of x eventually get as close as we like to as number L as x increases without bound, then we write limit x approaches to infinity f of x is equal to L, or f of x approaches to L as x approaches to plus infinity. Similarly, if the values of f of x eventually get as close to as we like to a number L as x decreases without bound, then we write limit x approaches to minus infinity of f of x is equal to L, or f of x approaches to L as x approaches to minus infinity. Let's see some examples. Suppose we need to calculate limit x approaches to plus infinity of x cube plus x square plus x plus 1 divided by x cube plus 3x square plus 5x plus 2. Remark that if we substitute as we did in the case of a finite limit, the value of the limit inside the function, we will get the undetermined form infinity plus infinity divided by infinity plus infinity. Therefore, we need to do something extraordinary. It is simple. What we can do is we can see that the polynomial in the numerator is a third order polynomial, and the same the polynomial in the denominator is a third order polynomial as well. We take out x raised to the power 3 common from the numerator and x raised to the power 3 common from the denominator and divide with x raised to the power 3. We can see that x is approaching to infinity, therefore x cannot be equal to 0. So the division is permissible and we can divide the numerator and the denominator with x raised to the power 3. By dividing with x raised to the power 3, we get x cube plus x square plus x plus 1 divided by x cube plus 3x square plus 5x plus 2 equals 1 plus 1 over x plus 1 over x cube plus 1 over x raised to the power 3. In the denominator, we have 1 plus 3 over x plus 5 over x square plus 2 over x cube. Now we know from early studies that the limit infinity of 1 over x is 0. So when we apply limit x approaches to infinity, we get 1 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 in the numerator and 1 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 in the denominator, and therefore the answer of the limit x approaches to infinity x cube plus x square plus x plus 1 divided by x cube plus 3x square plus 5x plus 2 is equal to 1. One thing is to be remarked that we were lucky enough to have the same degree of polynomial in the numerator as well as in the denominator. Whenever the degree of polynomial in the denominator is larger than the degree of polynomial in the numerator, the limit x approaches to infinity will give us an answer 0. Whenever the degree of polynomial in the numerator is larger than the degree of the polynomial in the denominator, we are going to get limit x approaches to infinity px over qx equals infinity. Let's move on to the next example. We need to calculate limit x approaches to infinity square root x square plus 1 minus square root x square minus 1. Before going to apply the limit, we need to rationalize the function again. So this time the conjugate function is square root x square plus 1 plus square root x square minus 1. We multiply the expression with its conjugate and get square root x square plus 1 minus square root x square minus 1 times square root x square plus 1 plus square root x square minus 1 whole divided by the conjugate square root x square plus 1 plus square root x square minus 1. Again, using the well-known formula a minus b times a plus b is equal to a square minus b square, we get squares in the numerator and in the denominator the conjugate function. That is to say, we get square root of x square minus x square plus 1 minus square root of x square minus 1 whole divided by square root of x square plus 1 plus square root of x square minus 1. On simplification, we get x square plus 1 minus x square minus 1 divided by square root x square plus 1 plus square root x square minus 1. And further simplification gives us the expression 2 over square root x square plus 1 plus square root x square minus 1. Now you can see that if we take out x square common in each of the square roots in the denominator, it will become x after leaving square root, and we will get in the square root 2 over x times square root 1 plus 1 over x square plus square root 1 minus 1 over x square. Now when we apply limit x approaches to infinity, 1 over x and 1 over x square become 0, and therefore limit x approaches to infinity square root x square plus 1 minus square root x square minus 1 is equal to limit x approaches to infinity 2 over square root x square plus 1 plus square root x square minus 1 equals to 0. This can be remarked that the degree of the denominator can be said to be the degree of the denominator is 1, which is higher than the degree of the numerator. Therefore, the limit x approaches to infinity gives us 0. Let's talk about horizontal asymptotes. What are horizontal asymptotes? We have discussed about vertical asymptotes in our previous lecture, where we said the vertical asymptote is the line x is equal to a such that the limit x approaches to a from positive and from negative side of f of x, the answer gives us plus minus infinity. Here you can see the line y is equal to L is called a horizontal asymptote to the graph of function f of x if limit x approaches to infinity f of x is equal to L, or limit x approaches to minus infinity f of x is equal to L. Remark that in vertical asymptotes our function y was approaching to plus or minus infinity as x was approaching to a certain finite limit x is equal to a. Now in horizontal asymptote, we have y coordinate fixed and our x coordinate is going to infinity or minus infinity. So a horizontal asymptote can be plotted as we have seen in the graphs. In the first graph, to the left, we can see that y is equal to L is an horizontal asymptote because the function y is equal to f of x is below the line y is equal to L while x is approaching towards infinity. In the second example, we can see that the graph of f of x is equal to y is above the line y is equal to L and it goes to and x goes to minus infinity. So the line y is equal to L is a horizontal asymptote to the graph of function y is equal to f of x. Now we move on to the example of tan inverse function. Perhaps you have noticed in the lecture on trigonometric functions that when we took x is equal to pi by 2, tan of pi by 2 was undefined, and therefore tan inverse of x as x approaches to infinity is equal to pi by 2. Similarly, limit x approaches to minus infinity, tan inverse of x is equal to minus pi by 2. Therefore, the lines y is equal to pi by 2 and y is equal to minus pi by 2 are the horizontal asymptotes for the function f of x is equal to tan inverse of x in the positive and in the negative directions respectively. Here is the graph. You can see clearly that the graph of the tan inverse function is bounded between the two horizontal asymptotes minus pi by 2 and pi by 2. Let's see how to find the horizontal asymptotes or when do they exist. Suppose we are given a rational function f of x where the numerator is a polynomial of degree n and the denominator is a polynomial of degree m. If we examine the degree of the numerator and denominator, there is only one possibility out of three. First one is if n is greater than m, the degree of the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So as we have already discussed that when the degree of the numerator is larger than the degree of the denominator, we get an answer plus or minus infinity. So the limiting value of f of x would be plus minus infinity, and therefore the function is not having any horizontal asymptote. Now suppose that m is greater than n, that is the degree of the polynomial in the numerator is smaller than the degree of the polynomial in the denominator. We have already discussed that when this does happen, we are having the answer equals 0. So the limit x approaches to infinity of the function f of x is having an answer 0. Therefore the line y is equal to 0 is a horizontal asymptote of the function f of x. The last case is when the degree of the polynomial in the form of numerator is the same as the degree of the polynomial in the denominator, that is when m is equal to n, our limit L would be of the form an divided by bm, where an is the leading order coefficient of the numerator polynomial and bm is the leading coefficient of the denominator. Then the horizontal asymptote is y is equal to an divided by bm. Let's move on to the laws of limit at infinity. When x approaches to plus or minus infinity, the limit x approaches to plus minus infinity of the power of a function f of x is equal to the power of limit x approaches to plus minus infinity f of x. That is, limit x approaches to plus minus infinity of f of x raised to the power n is equal to limit x approaches to plus minus infinity f of x raised to the power n. That is, limit applies on every factor which is in the product. Now, if limit x approaches to plus minus infinity is applied on constant multiple of a function f of x, we can take out the constant from the limit, and the limit applies directly on the function f of x. That is, limit x approaches to plus minus infinity k f of x is equal to k limit x approaches to plus infinity f of x. Limit of a constant is the constant itself. That is, limit x approaches to plus minus infinity k is equal to k. The next one is the limit of a polynomial. Suppose we are given the function f of x is equal to k x raised to the power n, then limit x approaches to plus minus infinity kxn is equal to plus minus infinity if n is odd. That is, if n is odd, the limit preserves its sign plus or minus. When n is even, limit x approaches to plus minus infinity k x raised to the power n is equal to plus infinity. As n is even, so the minus sign goes away. Let's apply these rules on an example, which is evaluate limit x approaches to plus infinity of square root x raised to the power 6 plus 5 x raised to the power 3 minus x raised to the power 3. Again, we can see that our function is in having some square root terms, and we need to rationalize this function before applying the limit. So first we multiply and divide by the conjugate of the function. That is, we simplify limit x approaches to plus infinity square root of x square x6 plus 5 x raised to the power 3 minus x cube, and write it as limit x approaches to plus infinity square root x raised to the power 6 plus 5x cube minus x cube times square root of x raised to the power 6 plus 5x cube plus x cube whole divided by square root of x raised to the power 6 plus 5x cube plus x cube. In the numerator, we get the form of a minus b times a plus b, and therefore it gives us the square of the first term minus the square of the second term. That is to say, we get in the numerator x raised to the power 6 plus 5 times x raised to the power 3 minus the square of x cube, that is x raised to the power 6, and in the denominator we have square root of x raised to the power 6 plus 5x raised to the power 3 plus x cube. That is, on simplification, it gives us limit x approaches to plus infinity 5x cube divided by square root of x raised to the power 6 plus 5x raised to the power 3 plus x raised to the power 3. Now we have rationalized our function, but when we apply infinity directly inside the expression, we get the undetermined form of infinity over infinity. Therefore, before we could apply limit x approaches to plus infinity, we need to simplify further, and to do some extra work, what we can do is when we divide and multiply with x raised to the power 3, the numerator becomes 5 and the denominator becomes square root of 1 plus 5 over x raised to the power 3 plus 1, as x raised to the power 3 becomes x raised to the power 6 inside the square root. So we get 5 over square root 1 plus 5 over x cube plus 1. Now we can see that if we apply limit x approaches to plus infinity, we are having only one term involving x. So when we apply infinity inside that term, we get 5 over infinity, which gives us 0. Therefore we get a determined form, and on substituting x plus infinity inside the expression, we get 5 divided by square root 1 plus 0 plus 1, and this gives us answer 5 by 2. Therefore the limit x approaches to plus infinity of square root x raised to the power 6 plus 5 x raised to the power 3 minus x raised to the power 3 is actually 5 by 2. Now while you have seen that we can actually calculate the value of limit x approaches to plus minus infinity of some functions, let's try to find the limits of x approaches to plus infinity and minus infinity on logarithmic and exponential functions. We have the following results. Limit x approaches to plus infinity, natural log of x is equal to plus infinity. Similar result holds for exponential functions. For example, limit x approaches to plus infinity, e raised to the power x is equal to plus infinity. It should be remarked that x is approaching towards plus infinity, so it is very near to infinity, but it is a positive number, and e raised to the power positive number, when applied limit as that number goes to infinity, gives us answer plus infinity. So it should be noted that when exponent has a positive power and that positive power goes to infinity, the answer goes to plus infinity. Similarly, we have limit x approaches to plus infinity, e raised to the power minus x equal to 0. The same remark holds here, because now x is going to plus infinity and therefore x is a positive number, and in the exponent we have a negative number because we have minus x in the exponent. Therefore the limit exponent going to infinity of exponential function with a minus sign gives us an answer 0. As we can confirm in the graphs given below, on the left you can see the graph of y is equal to e raised to the power minus x in red and y is equal to e raised to the power x in blue. You can see that as x approaches to plus infinity, you can see that when x approaches to plus infinity, y is equal to e raised to the power minus x goes to 0, and the line L is equal to 0, which is x-axis, is a horizontal asymptote of the function y is equal to e raised to the power minus x. The same remark holds for y is equal to e raised to the power x. As x approaches to minus infinity, the graph of y is equal to e raised to the power x has a horizontal asymptote, that is y is equal to 0 or the x-axis. On the right hand side you can see the graph of y is equal to e raised to the power x in blue and the graph of y is equal to log of x in the red. Remark that when x goes to minus infinity, on the right hand side you can see the graph of y is equal to e raised to the power x in the blue, and you can see the graph of y is equal to log of x in the red. And remark that when x approaches to 0, y is equal to log of x is going to have and you can see that when x goes to 0, y is equal to log of x is undefined, and so x is equal to 0 is a vertical asymptote of the curve y is equal to natural log of x. Let's talk about the formal definition of limits. Up till now we were discussing the limit as a layman, and we have never discussed about the mathematical or proper mathematical definition of the limit. The limit of a function f of x is defined as follows. Let f of x be well defined for all points x in some open interval containing a, with the possible exception that f of x need not be defined at a itself. We will write limit x approaches to a f of x is equal to L. Mathematically speaking, if we are given any positive number epsilon, we can find a number delta greater than 0 such that whenever x minus a is less than delta, we are having f of x minus L less than epsilon. Here epsilon expresses the arbitrarily nature of the closeness, and delta expresses the sufficient nature of the closeness. Generally speaking, delta depends on the value of epsilon, and to prove a limit we need to find delta, and that is a key point in calculating limits using formal definition of delta epsilon. We say lambda x approaches to a f of x is equal to L means that for every epsilon greater than 0, no matter how small epsilon is, we can find a delta greater than 0 such that if x lies in the open interval a minus delta to a plus delta and x approaches to a, then f of x lies in the open interval L minus epsilon L plus epsilon. This case can be seen in the following diagram. This can be seen from the following diagram. In order for f of x to be within the green box, one must find a delta such that whenever x belongs to the orange box, f of x belongs to the green box. If we are able to find such a delta, it means that the limit of the function as x approaches to a exists. Let's consider the example of limits using formal definition. We need to prove that limit x approaches to 3 x square is equal to 9. In order to prove this, we must show that for any given epsilon greater than 0, we have a delta greater than 0 such that absolute value of f of x minus L is less than epsilon if x minus 3 absolute value is less than delta. That is to say, whenever x minus 3 mod is less than delta, we have mod x minus 3 times mod x plus 3 less than epsilon. If we choose a delta less than 3, then we have minus 1 less than x minus 3 less than 1, which gives us 5 less than x plus 3 less than 7. Why we did this? Because we know that x minus 3 absolute value is less than delta, but we don't know the value of x plus 3 absolute value. So if we take delta less than equal to 1, we can actually bound x plus 3 within an interval, and that interval is between 5 and 7. So if we take delta less than 1, we need to prove that x plus 3 absolute value, x minus 3 absolute value is less than 7 delta. So now we take delta as the minimum of 1 or epsilon divided by 7. Using this, we can show that when x minus 3 absolute value is less than delta, we have x plus 3 less than x minus 3. This is less than 7 delta, and which is less than 1 over 7 epsilon, and this is equal to epsilon. So formally we have proved that whenever x minus 3 absolute value less than delta is given, we have absolute value of x square minus 9 less than epsilon for a given epsilon. So we have actually found the value of delta. Therefore, limit x approaches to 3, x square is equal to 9. Let f of x be defined for all x in some open interval containing a, except that f of x need not be defined at a. We will write limit x approaches to a f of x is equal to minus infinity if, given any negative integer m, we can find a delta greater than 0 such that f of x satisfies f of x less than m if 0 less than absolute value of x minus a less than delta. Similarly, if f of x is defined on an interval except maybe at the point x is equal to a, we will write limit x approaches to a f of x is equal to minus infinity if, given any positive number m, we can find a number delta greater than 0 such that f of x satisfies f of x is greater than m if absolute value of x minus a less than delta. Now we move on to prove that the limit of a function f of x, if it does exist, it is unique at an interior point of some domain. We have the following theorem which states a function has at most one limit at an interior point in its domain. Suppose by contradiction that limit x approaches to a f of x is equal to L and limit x approaches to a f of x is equal to m as well, where L is not equal to m. By definition of limit, there must exist a delta greater than 0 for epsilon equal to 1 by 4 mod L minus m. As we can see that L minus m is non-zero because L is different from m, and we can choose epsilon such that epsilon is equal to 1 by 4 L minus m. So choosing epsilon equals to 1 by 4 absolute value of L minus m and using the definition of limit, we can say that there exists a delta 1 greater than 0 such that absolute value of f of x minus L is less than epsilon, which is equal to 1 by 4 absolute value of L minus m whenever our x satisfies that absolute value of x minus a is less than delta 1. Similarly, for m there is another delta 2 such that absolute value of f of x minus m less than equal to epsilon equal to 1 by 4 L minus m whenever x minus a is less than delta 2. Now let's take the minimum of delta 1 and delta 2 as delta. Therefore, by definition, whenever x minus a mod is less than delta 1 or delta 2, we have absolute value of x minus a less than delta, because delta is the minimum of the two. Now we calculate absolute value of L minus m. We have absolute value of L minus m is equal to absolute value of f of x minus m minus f of x minus L absolute value. This gives us, using the triangular inequality of absolute function, we have absolute value of f of x minus m plus absolute value of f of x minus L. And now we know that by the definition of limit, as we discussed in the previous slide, that absolute value of f of x minus m is actually less than equal to 1 by 4 absolute value of L plus m, and absolute value of f of x minus L is as well less than equal to 1 by 4 absolute value of L minus m. On adding the two, we get absolute value of L minus m less than 1 by 2 absolute value of L minus m. Is it possible? Of course not, because we are considering a positive number L minus m absolute value. It cannot be less than or equal to its half. Therefore, we get a contradiction, and hence L should be equal to m. Let's conclude today's lecture with the graphical representation of the theorem on uniqueness of the limit. On the left hand side, we have plotted the two regions where f of x minus L and f of x plus L is less than epsilon. On the right hand side, we have in the orange region the interval for delta, which is the minimum of delta 1 and delta 2, and as for the given choice of epsilon, we cannot find a delta. Therefore, by the definition of limit, L1 cannot be different from m. Let's summarize today's lecture. Today we have studied some working rules for calculating limits at finite as well as infinite points. We discussed the functions having square roots or cube roots and the functions having the form of infinity over infinity, 0 over 0, 0 into infinity, or infinity into infinity. We discussed about the limits at infinite points, and then we moved on to horizontal asymptotes, and we introduced the horizontal asymptotes as the lines y is equal to L such that limit x approaches to plus infinity of f of x is equal to L. We talked about the rules to calculate limits at infinity, as well as we studied the limits of logarithmic and exponential functions. We also introduced the formal definition of limit, and finally, using the formal definition of limit, we proved that the limit of some function f of x must be unique. In the next lecture, we will be discussing some famous results and theorems in limits, and then we will move on to continuity, which will be essential for derivatives and partial derivatives. Allah Hafiz.